The council chamber stretched across 300 meters of polished obsidian stone. High Chancellor Vexarin stood at the center platform, his 4 eyes scanning the holographic display that floated before him. The blue and green planet rotated slowly in the projection, looking insignificant against the vast darkness of space. "This is the world?" Minister Grathel asked from his seat. His voice carried disappointment. "It looks primitive." Vexarin waved his hand and the display changed. Numbers and data streams appeared around the planet. The information painted a picture of a species barely crawling out of their own atmosphere. They had discovered nuclear energy, yes, but their weapons were crude. Their space stations were tiny metal boxes. Their rockets used chemical propulsion like children playing with fire. "They call themselves humans," Vexarin said. "They have not achieved faster than light travel. They have not unified their planet under one government." Our scouts counted 195 separate nations, all competing with each other. Laughter rippled through the council. The Valorian Empire had conquered 47 star systems over 10,000 years. They had subjugated dozens of species. Every one of them had eventually understood the simple truth that resistance against the Empire was pointless. Technology determined power, and the Valorians possessed technology these humans could not even imagine. "Why do we bother with such a backward world?" asked General Thexnor. "Surely there are more valuable targets for our expansion." Vexarin magnified the planet's surface. Vast oceans appeared, covering 70% of the world. Rivers snaked through green continents. Clouds swirled in beautiful patterns. "Water," he said simply. "This world has more fresh water than any planet we have discovered in the last century. The soil is rich. The atmosphere is perfect for most species we have integrated into the Empire, and the location provides a strategic position for further expansion into the spiral arm of the galaxy." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But more importantly, this system contains rare elements our Empire needs. The 4th planet in their system has mineral deposits worth more than the entire Kresh sector." The council members murmured their approval. Resources meant wealth. Wealth meant power. The Valorian way had always been simple. Find valuable worlds, take them, exploit them. "Admiral Krethzor," Vexarin turned to the military commander. "You will lead the subjugation fleet." Admiral Krethzor rose from his seat. He was a veteran of 30 campaigns, decorated with honors from dozens of successful invasions. His scales gleamed with the silver polish of high rank. "How many ships, Chancellor?" 300 warships should be sufficient," Vexarin replied. "Standard subjugation protocol. We overwhelm them with our presence. They surrender. We establish colonial governance. Simple." Krethzor nodded. 300 ships could destroy entire planets. Against a species without FTL capability. It was massive overkill. He had conquered more advanced civilizations with smaller fleets. "It will be done within 3 cycles, Chancellor. These humans will not even consider resistance once they see our power." "Excellent," Vexarin said. "Remember, we want the planet intact. Minimal damage to the infrastructure. These creatures might be primitive, but they have built cities and factories. We can use those, and we need workers for the mining operations." "What if they refuse to surrender?" asked Minister Grathel. Krethzor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "In my 30 years of service, I have given the surrender ultimatum to 43 species. 41 surrendered immediately. 2 resisted initially but collapsed within days once we demonstrated our weapons. Pre-FTL civilizations always surrender. They have no choice. They look up at our ships and realize they are facing gods." The council members nodded in agreement. It was always the same story. Primitive species saw Valorian technology and understood the futility of resistance. Most worlds surrendered without a single shot being fired. The few that fought back were crushed so quickly that the history books barely remembered their defiance. "The humans have nuclear weapons," noted the intelligence minister. "Should we be concerned?" Krethzor laughed. "Nuclear weapons? We had nuclear weapons 8,000 years ago. Our shields can withstand direct hits from weapons far more powerful than anything these humans possess. Their missiles are slow and easy to intercept. No, there is no concern. This will be routine." Vexarin closed the holographic display with a gesture. "Then we are decided. Admiral Krethzor will depart within the week. The fleet will jump to the human system, deliver our ultimatum, and secure the planet. The humans will become subjects of the Valorian Empire, and their world will add to our glory." The council members stood and raised their fists in salute. "Glory to the Empire!" As the meeting ended and the officials filed out, Admiral Krethzor remained behind, studying the datapad containing information about Earth. He scrolled through images of human cities, their primitive aircraft, their crude space stations. Everything confirmed what he already knew. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. He thought about how the humans would react when his fleet appeared in their sky. They would panic. Their leaders would argue among themselves, unable to coordinate a response. Some would want to fight. Others would beg for mercy. Eventually, they would all kneel. Krethzor had seen it happen so many times before. The pattern never changed. Superior technology won, fear won. The Valorian Empire won. He closed the datapad and walked toward the hangar where his flagship waited. 300 ships would soon jump through the void of space toward the blue and green planet. The humans would see the Valorian fleet and understand their place in the galaxy. They would surrender. They always surrendered. Admiral Krethzor never imagined that everything he believed about conquest was about to be proven wrong. He never imagined that the humans would be different. He never imagined that his name would be remembered not for another easy victory, but as the commander who awakened something the galaxy had never seen before. The fleet departed 3 days later, jumping into faster-than-light travel with perfect precision. Their destination was 50 light-years away. Their expectations were absolute. Their fate was already sealed. The warning sirens began at the Arecibo Observatory at exactly 0347 hours Greenwich Mean Time. Dr. Sarah Matthews had been monitoring deep space signals when her screen suddenly filled with contacts. Hundreds of them, all appearing at the edge of the solar system at once. "That's impossible," she whispered, her hands shaking as she recalibrated the instruments. The contacts remained. They were moving. Fast. Heading directly toward Earth. Within minutes, every telescope and radar system on the planet confirmed what Arecibo had seen. Something massive was coming. Something that had just appeared from nowhere, violating every law of physics that humanity understood. The emergency calls went out simultaneously to every capital on Earth. 20 hours later, the Valorian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's moon. 300 warships materialized in perfect formation, each one larger than the biggest aircraft carrier humanity had ever built. They hung in space like dark monuments blotting out the stars. Admiral Krethzor stood on his flagship's command deck, watching the blue planet below. "Deploy the translation matrix. Send the standard ultimatum." The transmission went out on every frequency humanity used for communication. Every radio, every television, every phone received the message simultaneously. The voice was mechanical, translated by alien computers into hundreds of human languages. "Attention, inhabitants of the third planet. You have been discovered by the Valorian Empire. Your world is now claimed as territory of the Empire. You will cease all military activities immediately. You will prepare to receive our colonial administrators. Resistance is futile. You have 72 hours to signal your complete surrender. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your military infrastructure and major population centers." The message played 3 times, then stopped. Silence fell across Earth. For 10 seconds, the entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Then chaos erupted. In New York, people ran screaming through the streets. In Beijing, the government mobilized its military. In Moscow, nuclear weapons were armed. In Geneva, the Secretary General of the United Nations stared at the screen showing the alien fleet and felt ice run through his veins. The emergency session at the UN building lasted 6 hours. Representatives from every nation crowded into the assembly hall. Arguments raged in dozens of languages. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others demanded they fight. Still others suggested trying to negotiate. General Maria Santos, the newly appointed UN Defense Coordinator, listened to the chaos with growing frustration. Finally, she stood and her voice cut through the noise. "Enough." She slammed her hand on the desk. "I have spent 30 years in the military. I know what we are facing. Those ships up there can probably destroy us, but I also know something else." She pulled up satellite images on the main screen. "For 60 years since we first looked at the stars and wondered if we were alone, we have been preparing. Not publicly, not with big announcements, but every major nation has contributed to secret programs, defense systems in orbit. Weapons we told the public were satellites, research facilities hidden underground. We prepared for this day." A Russian general stood. General Santos is correct. We have railgun platforms in orbit, disguised as weather satellites. They have been there for 20 years. An American admiral added, our space station modules contain weapon systems, laser arrays, kinetic bombardment capabilities. A Chinese officer spoke next. Our quantum computing networks can coordinate defensive systems across the entire planet. One by one, the representatives revealed the truth. Humanity had been building a defense grid for decades, hidden from public knowledge, funded by secret budgets from a dozen nations. It was incomplete. It was experimental. But it existed. Can it stop them? Asked the Secretary General. I don't know, General Santos admitted. But I know we cannot surrender. If we give up without fighting, we tell them we are weak. We tell them they can take whatever they want. Today they take Earth. Tomorrow they take everything. The vote was called. 193 nations voted. The result was unanimous. The response was transmitted to the Valorian fleet in the same mechanical voice they had used. This is Earth. We reject your claim. This planet belongs to humanity. Leave our system immediately, or we will defend ourselves. This is your only warning. On the flagship, Admiral Krethzor listened to the translation and laughed. They dare threaten us. How amusing. Deploy the demonstration protocol. Destroy one of their satellites and fire a warning shot at their moon. Let them see what defiance costs. The Valorian weapons activated. A targeting beam locked onto an abandoned satellite. The beam fired and the satellite exploded into fragments. Then the massive main gun of the flagship charged, creating a sphere of energy that glowed like a small sun. Fire, Krethzor commanded. The energy blast shot toward Earth's moon. It struck the surface with the force of a nuclear weapon, creating a new crater visible from Earth with the naked eye. The message was clear: surrender or die. Now deploy the landing craft, Krethzor ordered. Send 50 assault ships to major population centers. Once they see our troops descending, they will panic and surrender. The Valorian assault ships launched, heading toward Earth in a wedge formation. They were halfway between the fleet and the planet when General Santos gave the order she had hoped she would never need to give. Activate all defensive systems. Fire at will. Hidden panels opened on satellites across Earth's orbit. Railgun platforms that had been disguised for years revealed their true purpose. Magnetic accelerators charged. Tungsten rods, each weighing 10 kilograms and moving at 50,000 meters per second, launched toward the Valorian craft. The aliens had shields. They had armor. But they had never faced kinetic weapons moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rods punched through their shields like they were paper. Ships exploded. Debris scattered across orbit. Laser defense networks activated next, hidden on the dark side of Earth's space stations. Concentrated beams of coherent light struck Valorian hulls. More ships died. The Valorian assault formation broke apart in confusion. Of the 50 ships that had launched, only 28 made it back to the fleet. On his flagship, Admiral Krethzor stood frozen in shock. What just happened? His tactical officer's voice shook. Sir, they had weapons. Hidden weapons. We lost 22 assault craft. They just killed 3,000 Valorian soldiers. Krethzor stared at the tactical display. The primitive species without FTL travel had just bloodied the nose of the Valorian Empire. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was unacceptable. All ships, he said, his voice cold with rage. Battle formation. Target their weapons platforms. Prepare for full planetary assault. On Earth, General Santos watched the Valorian fleet reorganize and knew the real battle was just beginning. She opened a channel to every military installation on the planet. This is General Santos to all forces. They're coming. Hold your positions. Fight for every meter. Fight for humanity. Make them pay for every inch of our world. Around the planet, millions of soldiers looked up at the sky and prepared to face an enemy from the stars. They were outgunned. They were outmatched. But they were fighting for their home. And humans defending their home were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. The bombardment began at dawn over the Pacific Ocean. Valorian warships descended into low orbit and fired their plasma cannons at military targets across the globe. Mountain installations disappeared in clouds of fire. Naval bases evaporated. Airfields became craters, but humanity fired back. From hidden bunkers deep beneath the Rockies, massive railguns emerged and launched their deadly cargo into space. The projectiles moved so fast that the Valorians barely had time to detect them before they hit. 3 warships exploded in the first minute, 7 more in the next 5 minutes. Admiral Krethzor watched his fleet take damage and felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. How are they doing this? They should not have weapons capable of harming us. His science officer studied the data streaming across his console. Admiral, their weapons are crude but effective. They use simple kinetic force combined with precision targeting. Our shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at these velocities. Then adapt the shields, Krethzor shouted. It will take time, Admiral. Hours at minimum. Krethzor did not have hours. Every minute his fleet remained in orbit, more ships were being damaged or destroyed. He made the decision that would doom his invasion. All ground forces deploy immediately. Take their cities. We will use their population as shields. They will not fire on their own people. 2,000 Valorian dropships launched toward Earth's surface. They descended through the atmosphere in formations of 50, heading toward major cities across 6 continents. Their mission was simple: land, secure the population centers, and force humanity to surrender to save their civilians. The Valorians had never been more wrong about anything. The first wave landed in Shanghai. The alien soldiers emerged from their craft, weapons ready, expecting to face panicked civilians. Instead, they walked into a trap. The entire district had been evacuated during the night. Buildings that looked normal from the air were actually hollow shells packed with explosives. The Chinese military detonated the charges remotely. Entire city blocks collapsed, burying Valorian soldiers under tons of rubble. Survivors stumbled out only to face automated defense turrets that rose from the ground. The battle for Shanghai lasted 4 hours and ended with every Valorian soldier dead or captured. In Moscow, the story was different, but equally brutal. The Valorians landed in Red Square, expecting their show of force to terrify the Russians into submission. Instead, they found the square surrounded by tanks, artillery, and 50,000 soldiers who had been waiting for them. The Russian commander did not offer terms. He did not give warnings. He simply ordered his forces to fire. Thousands of shells and rockets hit the Valorian positions simultaneously. The aliens had better armor and shields, but they were outnumbered and caught in an open killing ground. The battle raged for 2 days. The Valorians were better equipped, but the Russians kept coming. For every alien soldier, there were 20 humans willing to die to stop them. The Valorians had never faced an enemy that simply refused to break. Eventually, the surviving Valorians retreated to their dropships, leaving half their number dead in the rubble. The pattern repeated across the planet. In New York, in Cairo, in Tokyo, in Sao Paulo, humanity fought with a ferocity that shocked the invaders. The Valorians had superior technology, but humans had something more powerful. They were fighting for their survival. At a secret facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked without sleep for 3 days straight. Her team had captured a Valorian communications device from a crashed ship. She was determined to crack its encryption. It's quantum-based, she told her exhausted team. But it's not impossible. Look at the pattern here. They use a rotating cipher that changes every 30 seconds, but the rotation follows a mathematical sequence. If we can predict the sequence, we can decrypt their transmissions. Her colleague, Dr. James Park, shook his head. Yuki, that would require computing power we don't have. The calculations would take years. Not if we use distributed computing. She pulled up a display. Every university, every research lab, every quantum computer on Earth working together. We crowdsourced the decryption. It was insane. It was brilliant. It worked. 72 hours after the first Valorian message, humanity cracked their communications. Suddenly, every order Admiral Krethzor gave was intercepted. Every ship movement was known in advance. The Valorians were fighting blind while humanity could see everything. General Santos used this advantage ruthlessly. When Valorian ships moved to attack Tokyo, fighters were waiting. When troops deployed to London, ambushes were prepared. The battle that had seemed hopeless began to shift, but the Valorians still had numbers. For every ship humanity destroyed, there were 10 more. Admiral Krethzor adapted his tactics, becoming more cautious and methodical. He stopped trying to capture cities and instead focused on destroying Earth's ability to resist. The siege entered its second week. Earth's orbital defenses were nearly depleted. Millions had died in the bombardments. Cities burned. But humanity did not surrender. In the ruins of what had been Colorado Springs, Captain James Okafor led a special forces team through the darkness. They were hunting a Valorian supply depot that the intercepted communications had revealed. The plan was desperate, but desperation had become humanity's normal state. "There," whispered Lieutenant Chen, pointing to a valley where 3 Valorian cargo ships sat unguarded. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they had not bothered with heavy security. Okafor's team moved silently through the shadows. They reached the first ship and planted their captured Valorian explosive charges. The irony was not lost on them, using the enemy's own weapons against them, but Okafor wanted more than destruction. He wanted a prize. "Chen, Rodriguez, you're with me. We're taking the third ship." They moved to the smallest cargo vessel. Using codes that Dr. Tanaka's team had extracted from the communications, they opened the airlock. Inside, they found what they were looking for: a shuttle capable of faster-than-light travel. "Can you fly it?" Okafor asked Rodriguez, who had been trained as a pilot. "I can try," Rodriguez said, studying the alien controls. "Give me 10 minutes." They did not have 10 minutes. Valorian guards appeared, alerted by motion sensors. The firefight was brief and brutal. 2 of Okafor's team died, but they held the shuttle long enough for Rodriguez to activate the systems. The shuttle lifted off just as the planted explosives detonated. The other 2 cargo ships erupted in fireballs. Okafor's shuttle accelerated upward, breaking through the atmosphere and into space. "Where are we going?" Chen asked. Okafor grinned despite the pain from his wounds. "To visit the Admiral." Using the captured communication codes, Rodriguez broadcast friendly identification signals. The shuttle approached the Valorian flagship without being fired upon. They docked with a maintenance bay, exactly as Dr. Tanaka's plan had predicted. Inside the flagship, Okafor's team moved through corridors that smelled of ozone and strange chemicals. They planted charges at key structural points, but their main target was the Admiral's weapon control room. They found it guarded by only 2 soldiers. Humans were not supposed to be able to reach the flagship. The guards died before they could raise an alarm. Okafor's team entered the control room and found exactly what they were looking for: the charging system for the planet-killer weapon that Admiral Krethzor had been preparing. "How long to sabotage it?" Okafor asked. Chen studied the systems. 2 minutes, but boss, if we reverse the power flow and overload the containment, the weapon will detonate inside the ship, Okafor finished. "Do it." Chen's hands flew across the alien controls. Warning lights began flashing. Alarms wailed through the flagship. Admiral Krethzor rushed to his command deck, demanding reports. "The weapon is destabilizing," his weapons officer screamed. "Someone has sabotaged the containment field." "Shut it down," Krethzor ordered. "It's too late, Admiral. The cascade has begun." Okafor and his team ran through the corridors, racing back to their stolen shuttle. Valorian soldiers fired at them. Chen fell, then Rodriguez. Only Okafor made it to the shuttle. He launched just as the flagship's weapon reached critical mass. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. The Valorian flagship, along with 40 ships positioned near it, simply ceased to exist in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. Admiral Krethzor died still believing that primitive species were supposed to surrender. He never understood that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was the simple refusal to give up. The remaining Valorian fleet broke formation and retreated beyond the moon, leaderless and shocked. They had come to conquer. Instead, they had learned what it meant to face humans defending their home. The remaining Valorian ships jumped to faster-than-light travel 3 days after their admiral's death. They left behind 173 disabled warships, thousands of dead soldiers, and the wreckage of the most humiliating defeat in their empire's history. They also left behind something they had not intended to give: technology that would change humanity forever. General Santos stood in the ruins of Washington, D.C. watching salvage crews work on a crashed Valorian cruiser. The ship was the size of a football stadium, and every piece of it represented knowledge humanity had never possessed. Engineers swarmed over the wreckage like ants, carefully documenting and removing every component. "How many intact ships did we capture?" she asked Dr. Tanaka, who had become the head of Earth's new technology acquisition program. 47 ships are relatively undamaged and can be studied completely. Another 90 are too damaged to fly but still contain working systems, and we have over 2,000 smaller craft, shuttles, fighters, cargo vessels. Dr. Tanaka looked at her tablet, her eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. "General, we have just received a masterclass in technology that should have taken us centuries to develop." Around the world, humanity threw itself into understanding Valorian technology, with the same intensity they had shown in defending their planet. Universities partnered with military research labs. Private companies shared patents freely. Nations that had been enemies weeks ago now worked together with single-minded purpose. The first breakthrough came from a team in Berlin. They cracked the principles behind Valorian faster-than-light drives. The physics were complex, but once understood, they were surprisingly elegant. Space could be folded, allowing ships to cross vast distances in moments. "But here's the interesting part," explained Dr. Friedrich Müller in a broadcast to the global scientific community. "The Valorian drives are inefficient. They work, yes, but they waste enormous amounts of energy. If we redesign the field generators using our own materials and principles, we can improve the efficiency by 40%. It became a pattern. Humanity would study a Valorian system, understand its principles, and then immediately improve upon it. The aliens had designed their technology to be reliable and standardized across their empire. Humans designed theirs to be adaptable and efficient. In a bunker beneath Beijing, engineers worked on Valorian weapons. The alien plasma cannons were powerful but slow to recharge. A Chinese team redesigned them using human capacitor technology, cutting the recharge time in half. A week later, an Indian team made them smaller and lighter. A month after that, a Brazilian team found a way to triple their range. The world's economy transformed overnight. Money that had gone to competing militaries now flowed into a unified purpose, making sure Earth could never be threatened again. The United Nations dissolved in a peaceful vote and reformed as the Unified Earth Coalition. For the first time in human history, the entire species operated under one government. President Amara Okonkwo, formerly the leader of a small African nation, stood before the UEC's first assembly. She had been elected by global vote, receiving 78% approval from Earth's population. "We stand at a crossroads," she said, her voice broadcast to every corner of Earth. "Behind us is the world we knew, divided, suspicious, fighting among ourselves. Ahead of us is something our ancestors dreamed of: unity, purpose, and the stars themselves. The Valorians came to conquer us. Instead, they gave us the keys to the galaxy." Construction began on orbital shipyards the day after her speech. Using captured Valorian manufacturing equipment and human innovation, the facilities grew rapidly. 6 months after the invasion, the first human-built faster-than-light ship launched from Earth orbit. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UENS Defiance, feeling the subtle vibration as the ship's engines powered up. The vessel was half the size of a Valorian warship but twice as fast. Its weapons were a hybrid of human and alien technology. Its crew represented 23 nations. "Helm, plot a course to Alpha Centauri," Chen ordered. "Let's see what else is out there." The Defiance jumped to FTL travel, crossing 4 light-years in 3 hours. When it arrived, the crew found ruins of an ancient civilization and evidence that the Valorians had strip-mined the system decades ago. But they also found something else: a beacon, broadcasting in a language that was not Valorian. Dr. Tanaka, who had joined the mission, worked for 2 days to translate the message. When she finally decoded it, her hands shook. "Captain, you need to see this." The message was a plea for help. It had been broadcasting for 17 years. The sender called themselves the Kresh, and they begged anyone who received the message to aid them against the Valorian Empire, which had enslaved their world. Chen immediately sent the message back to Earth. President Okonkwo convened the UEC Council for an emergency session. The debate lasted 12 hours. Some argued that humanity should focus on defending Earth and stay out of galactic politics, Others insisted that if the Valorians had oppressed other species, Earth had a moral obligation to help. "We know what it feels like to face the Valorians," argued the representative from India. "We know the terror of seeing their ships in our sky. How can we ignore others suffering the same fate?" The decision was put to a vote, not just of the Council but of Earth's entire population. It was the first true planetary referendum in human history. 4 billion people voted. The result came back 73% in favor of offering assistance to any species oppressed by the Valorians. Humanity began building more ships. Within a year, 50 warships flew under the UEC flag. Within 2 years, 100. Engineers found ways to make manufacturing faster and cheaper. Crews trained in combat tactics that combined human strategy with captured Valorian knowledge. The galaxy began to notice. The Valorian Empire received reports of human ships appearing in their territory, offering protection to threatened worlds. At first, High Chancellor Vexarin dismissed these reports as exaggerations. Then 3 of his garrison forces were defeated by human fleets in border skirmishes. He convened his council again, but this time the mood was very different from the confident gathering that had approved the invasion of Earth. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They were primitives. They had no FTL capability." "They learned, Chancellor," his intelligence minister said quietly. "They studied every ship we left behind, and somehow they improved upon our designs. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than ours. Their weapons recharge quicker. Their crews fight with a coordination we have never seen." Meanwhile, humanity made its first official contact with a non-hostile alien species. The Cathrel Confederation, a coalition of trading worlds that stayed neutral in galactic conflicts, reached out to Earth diplomatically. The Cathrel ambassador arrived on Earth in a ship that broadcast peaceful intentions. President Okonkwo met her at the landing site, surrounded by security but offering an open hand. The Cathrel were tall, slender beings with 6 limbs and skin that shimmered like oil. Their ambassador, whose name translated as Starlight Between Storms, studied Okonkwo with compound eyes. "We have watched your conflict with the Valorians," Starlight said through a translation device. "We have seen what you accomplished. We would like to propose a technology exchange. We offer our knowledge of quantum computing and medical science. In return, we ask to study your ship propulsion systems." It was the beginning of Earth's diplomatic emergence. The Cathrel were cautious traders, but they were impressed by human innovation. More importantly, they were tired of Valorian aggression. An alliance with humanity offered them protection without the cost of war. Trade agreements followed, then defensive pacts, then something more profound: friendship between species who recognized in each other a desire for freedom. 2 years after the invasion, humanity controlled 12 star systems. They had established 3 colonies and built 200 warships. But more importantly, they had become a voice for the oppressed across the galaxy. When 3 subjugated species secretly contacted Earth, begging for aid against their Valorian overlords, humanity faced its biggest test yet. Helping them would mean declaring war on the Valorian Empire. Ignoring them would betray everything Earth claimed to stand for. President Okonkwo did not hesitate. "We will help them. We will show the galaxy that freedom is not a gift granted by the powerful. It is a right that belongs to everyone." Operation Liberation began. Human fleets jumped into Valorian-occupied systems, broadcasting the same message in every language. "You are not alone. Earth stands with you. Fight for your freedom. The galaxy would never be the same." The Valorian War Council met in the same obsidian chamber where they had once planned Earth's conquest. But now the mood was one of barely controlled panic. High Chancellor Vexarin looked older than his years as he studied the holographic display showing red markers across a dozen systems. "Explain to me," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "how a species we tried to subjugate 3 years ago now controls more territory than we have gained in the last century." Minister Grathel pulled up tactical reports. "They move faster than we do. Their ships can jump twice as far in a single FTL transition. When we engage them, they use tactics we have never seen. Coordinated strikes from multiple vectors, asymmetric warfare, psychological operations that turn our subject species against us. And they are winning the propaganda war," added the intelligence minister. "Every world they liberate broadcasts messages throughout the sector. They call humanity the liberators. They call us the old tyrants. 3 species have overthrown our colonial governments in the last month alone, encouraged by human promises of protection. Vexarin slammed his fist on the table. We are the Valorian Empire. We have ruled for 10,000 years. How can we be losing to a species that discovered FTL travel only 3 years ago? No one answered because they all knew the truth. The Valorians had spent 10,000 years conquering and administering. They had become administrators, not warriors. They had relied on fear and superior technology to maintain control. When they faced an enemy that did not fear them and could match their technology, they had no answer. The Council of Great Powers has taken notice, Vexarin continued. The Xanthir Collective, the Murtal Dominion, even the Cathrel Confederation, all of them are watching to see what happens. If we cannot contain humanity, our entire empire will collapse. Other subject species will rebel. Our rivals will sense weakness. General Thexnor, who had replaced the dead Admiral Krethzor, spoke carefully. Chancellor, I recommend we sue for peace. Offer the humans recognition of their sovereignty and their conquered territories. In exchange, they cease expansion into our core systems. Peace? Vexarin spat the word. Negotiate with primitives? They are no longer primitives, Chancellor, Thexnor said. And every day we delay, they grow stronger while we grow weaker. While the Valorians debated, humanity continued to expand its influence. The liberation of the Kresh homeworld became the template for future operations. Human fleets arrived in orbit, destroyed Valorian garrison forces, and then helped the local population establish their own government. No colonies, no occupation. Just freedom and a defensive pact. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Species who had been subjugated for generations suddenly found themselves free, protected by Earth's growing fleet. And humanity asked for nothing in return except friendship and trade. At the UEC headquarters on Earth, President Okonkwo met with representatives from the Kresh, the Talani, and the Vortex, all species recently liberated from Valorian control. The meeting room overlooked Earth's oceans, a reminder of why humanity fought. We owe you our freedom, said the Kresh representative, a being with 4 arms and crystalline skin. How can we repay this debt? Okonkwo smiled. There is no debt. Freedom is not something you owe us. It belongs to you already. We simply helped you reclaim it. But surely you want something, the Talani representative insisted. She was a small furred creature with large eyes. Tribute? Trade agreements favorable to Earth? Basing rights for your fleets? We want 3 things, Okonkwo said. First, treat your own people fairly and with respect. Second, never become oppressors yourselves. Third, if you see others in chains, help free them if you can. That is all we ask. The alien representatives looked at each other in confusion. In their experience, powerful species always demanded something. Resources. Territory. Submission. The idea that humanity genuinely wanted nothing, but to spread freedom was difficult to comprehend. You are strange beings, the Vortex representative rumbled. He was large and reptilian, with scars from decades of resistance against the Valorians. But we like you. You fight like you mean it. That assessment spread across the galaxy. Humanity fought like they meant it. They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for principles, and that made them dangerous to anyone who relied on subjugation to maintain power. The Valorian Empire was not the only power watching. The great civilizations that had remained neutral observed Earth's rise with interest. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat. All recognized that the galactic balance had shifted. The Cathrel Confederation formalized its alliance with Earth, signing a mutual defense treaty. The Murtal Dominion, a collection of aquatic species, opened diplomatic channels. Even the mysterious Xanthir Collective, who rarely dealt with younger species, sent observers to Earth. Humanity welcomed them all. The UEC built an embassy complex that became a neutral meeting ground for dozens of species. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy had a place where disputes could be resolved without threats of war. But not everyone was happy with Earth's rapid rise. The Valorian Empire finally made its decision. High Chancellor Vexarin, humbled and desperate, sent a formal peace proposal to Earth. The terms acknowledged human sovereignty, recognized all liberated worlds as independent, and offered substantial reparations for the invasion attempt. The UEC Council debated for a week. Many members wanted to push forward, to break the Valorian Empire completely. They remembered the bombardments, the deaths, the terror of watching alien ships destroy Earth cities. President Okonkwo listened to the arguments, then spoke. I remember standing in the ruins of Lagos watching my city burn. I remember thinking that if I survived, I would make sure no one ever did this to Earth again. And we have accomplished that. We are strong. We are feared. But now we must decide what kind of power we want to be. She pulled up images on the screen. Valorian civilians, families, children who looked alien but felt fear and love just like humans did. The Valorian Empire is cruel, but it is made of living beings. If we destroy them completely, we become the thing we fought against. We become the conquerors, the subjugators. Is that who we want to be? The vote was close, but in the end, humanity chose mercy. The UEC accepted the Valorian peace offer with conditions. The Empire would release all subjugated species. They would destroy half their military fleet. They would pay reparations. And they would send representatives to the UEC embassy complex to participate in what Earth called the Galactic Forum. High Chancellor Vexarin signed the treaty himself, traveling to Earth for the ceremony. He walked through human cities rebuilt from the ruins of his invasion. He saw memorials to the millions who had died, and he felt shame, an emotion Valorians rarely experienced. Why do you spare us? He asked Okonkwo after the signing. You could destroy us now while we are weak. Because destroying you would not bring back the dead, Okonkwo replied, and because we want to prove that power does not have to mean domination. The galaxy has lived under the law of the strong for too long. It is time for a new way. 3 years after the peace treaty, the galaxy looked very different. 23 species had gained independence from various oppressors, not just the Valorians. The Galactic Forum had 50 member species, all equal in vote and voice. Trade flourished. Technology was shared. Wars decreased. And in the halls of the UEC Military Academy on Mars, a surprising sight had become common. Alien cadets studying alongside humans. Among them was a young Valorian named Kethrin, grandson of the dead Admiral Krethzor. He had chosen to study military tactics at the institution that had defeated his grandfather. Why did you come here? Asked his human roommate, a cadet named David from Australia. Don't you hate us for what we did to your empire? Kethrin considered the question carefully. My grandfather believed that might made right. That superior technology meant you deserved to rule. Earth proved him wrong. You did not win because you were stronger. You won because you fought for something bigger than yourselves. I came here to learn that, to understand why fighting for freedom is stronger than fighting for conquest. In the Academy's main hall hung a plaque with words that had become famous across the galaxy. They were from General Santos's first speech to Earth's defenders when the Valorian fleet had arrived. They came to conquer us. We taught them that humanity does not kneel, not to threats, not to fear, not to anyone. We stand together, and that makes us unstoppable. Beneath those words was a newer addition, written after the peace treaty. But when the enemy is defeated, we offer a hand up, because strength without mercy is tyranny, and we fought too hard for freedom to become tyrants ourselves. The galaxy was learning what those words meant, slowly, painfully, but learning nonetheless. In her office overlooking the rebuilt city of New York, President Okonkwo watched the news broadcasts, showing the launch of humanity's first colony ship to the Andromeda Galaxy. Not fleeing, not escaping, but exploring, taking the hard-won lessons of Earth to new frontiers. Her aide entered. Madam President, the ambassador from the Xanthir Collective is here. They want to discuss membership in the Galactic Forum. Okonkwo smiled. Send them in. Let us show them what cooperation looks like. As the alien ambassador entered, Okonkwo thought about the journey humanity had taken. From a species on the verge of destruction to the conscience of the galaxy, it had cost millions of lives. It had required unity that had seemed impossible. But humanity had emerged not as conquerors, but as something the galaxy needed more. Liberators who knew when to fight and when to offer peace. The future stretched before them, vast and full of possibilities, and humanity walked into it not with fear, but with hope, carrying the torch of freedom into the darkness between the stars.